GrantTracker is a system that summarizes key award details for both GCA and campus to easily view. It can be used as a tool to communicate with campus users, as well as internally as a dashboard to manage some of the GCA workload. I'm going to start in the outward-facing campus view, and then we'll switch over to the internal GCA view. Then we'll do some toggling between the two. As a heads up, I'll likely be using the words budget and award interchangeably. The budget number is just an identifier for awards in our financial system. So the search page is where campus users would likely start. There's a form here that can be filled in with different criteria to pull up a budget number. So let's go ahead and pull one up using just the budget number. So it brings up not only that budget, but also a sub-budget. So in this case, the budget number I just entered was a parent budget. So the list that comes up has the sub-budget and the parent budget listed, and it shows the parent budget number in the parent budget column. So we'll just click on that one for now. So this is what I would call the budget summary page. The budget information here at the top pulls from the financial system, and it also pulls from the EFEX cost share system. So if there was cost share on this budget, it would be over here on the right. Also shown here is the final action date. And this date is important to campus because it's the last day that they can post expenditures to the budget. Below the final action date is a list of email contacts. And this is a list that's maintained by campus, and they determine who they want to be default contacts on this budget. And so anyone listed here would be the default to receive any of the correspondence on this budget. And this is also helpful to us in GCA if we need to send an email to somebody and or communicate with them outside of GrantTracker. It points us in the right direction as to who the fiscal contacts would be. There's also a record retention trigger date over here, and this shows campus the date on which the record retention clock started ticking. And this date is based on some of the criteria that you can find right here, if they're curious what generates that date. And over here, again, on the left side is the current status box. So this highlights to users if there are active or incomplete requests. So these could be items that need attention, and it's just a clear way to tell that there's current activity or an outstanding issue on the budget. If you scroll down a little more, there's the financial information lines. So all of our budgets will have this financial information line here. This pulls information from a lot of different systems. We have the financial system, we have the Ariba procurement system, the purchasing and accounts payable system, also known as PASS, the JDE invoicing system, and or UMBRS, which is a system for the letter of credit draws. And I say and or because it depends on the budget's billing type. So in this case, we're looking at a letter of credit budget. So expenses are reimbursed by drawing down funds. And another special thing about letter of credit budgets is that not only is there this standard financial information line, but there's also a line for total period to date financial information. So, if you have a award that spans multiple years overall, you can see all of that data here in one spot, but then it drills down into that specific budget period for this financial information part below. And so if you click on the draws, it'll bring you into this page where it shows each of that was like the total draw amount. But then it shows each individual draw that our letter of credit specialists have done. And you can drill down even further within those draws to see exactly which expenditures were reimbursed at that time. So I think that's really cool. It's a great resource, not only for GCA, but for campus folks to be able to see more detail about what we're drawing down. All right, so if there's a sub-budget, it would show in this line as well. And each budget is separated, but then it rolls up into the bottom line total right here. And if you wanted to look at the sub-budget specifically, you could open that up by clicking on the budget number, which would bring you to a budget information page specifically for that sub-budget. And in this case, you know, there are differences between the two. It's a different department. I think it's a different PI listed. So a different person is responsible for this sub, and therefore there are also different email contacts. So back to the budget summary page. This specific budget has a deficit, and so GrantTracker has a deficit transfer tool. And if you click here, you're taken to a web form where campus users can put in a budget number to which they'd like to transfer the deficit. And first they have to verify, though, that it's an allowable budget to receive a deficit transfer. But if it is, they can submit this form and it will post a JV to our financial system. Now, I'd like to transition to a budget that invoices through JDE instead of a letter of credit budget. So let's go back to search, and I'll enter in that budget number. Looks exactly the same so far, and there's not a lot of differences. So the main difference here is once you scroll down to the financial information line, instead of having that column for draws, you have 3 columns now for invoice, receipt, and open. So the total amount invoiced to date will show in this column for invoice. The total amount of cash receipts to date will show in the receipt column. And then if there were any unpaid invoices, that amount would show in the open column. Instead of being able to click on the amount here and pull up like a list of, you know, invoices and transactions, there's an invoice list down below once we scroll down a little bit further, which we'll get to in a second. And we're just going to continue on with this budget since there's nothing else that's different besides the billing component. So here's some contact information. And this has contact information for both GCA and campus. And it has our GCA help phone number, and it has all those email contacts that campus manages. But this is one of the places where campus users can submit a request, ask a question, or upload files. This is where someone would create what we call a note. So if you click here, you're brought to a structured form, which kind of guides the user in submitting their request. This makes it easier for users to identify key information quickly instead of having to really dig into an email thread. There's multiple topics to choose from in this drop-down list. And if you're unsure of which topic to pick, there's a little guide right next to that list. You can put in a subject, your request goes here. It will autofill with your information as the user. So it's got my name and my email because I'm going to submit the request. And then you'll see that everybody is CC'd here that was listed in the email contact list. At the very bottom, there's also a place to attach a file. And this is the only time that campus can edit these fields. Once they start the note, they can just respond pretty much. But it doesn't mean that nobody can edit it, and we'll get more into that in a little bit. So back to budget information. And we'll go down to the reporting schedule. So the GCA reporting team inputs reports at the budget setup phase. And in the schedule, you can see what type of report is due, the format, who's responsible for preparing it, the due date, and also there's a column for status. So you can see if GCA is in the process of completing the report or it's already been done. Maybe you're missing a copy. The UGC1 section is more related to Sage, and GCA doesn't use Sage, but this part could be helpful for campus users that work in both the pre and post-award stage. And if they were to click on one of these links, it would take them into a different portal where they could manage their awards. Now down to the notes. And this is the GrantTracker note grid. So here's another button where a user could ask a question or submit a file. And this is where all of the correspondence lives. The notes here are created using that form, and they can be created by both campus users or GCA users. And they're sorted here based on most recent. And there's different topics listed, statuses. When a note is created, it's assigned its own ID number, which can be used in a search if you wanted to quickly go to a specific note. If you'd like to see all the attachments without going into a specific note, you can also click this link and see them all listed out. The EDMS attachments, at one point we were using this where campus could retrieve their reports, similar to what I'll show you with the invoices below, but we're no longer using the EDMS workflow. Invoices and cash receipts are listed down here separately. Here's the invoices, and there's a button next to them to email to sponsor, which actually they can email it to whoever they want. But it brings up this form that they could fill out and attach any files to accompany the invoice. But when somebody uses this tool to submit an invoice, GCA is alerted via GrantTracker. There's a note that's created, and that will stay with the budget. When an invoice is voided, you see this little orange V next to it, and there's a couple other visuals that we have down here in this key that you might see next to invoices depending on the situation. Under receipts, all of the payments are listed. There's a variety here. It looks like some are for invoices. There's some bank fees. Also, the interest will be shown down here. So there's a couple of fiscal years of interest that's been posted. Now, if you scroll up, there's a menu over here on the left side, and there's a spot where you can group budgets by organization code. And this allows for users to see all of the budgets within their org code, or organization, I guess, and sort them based on which ones have open grant trackers. So maybe there's an outstanding request or actionable item, budgets with final action or end dates in the next 90 days. That could be helpful for campus in preparation for closeout. Budgets with open invoices. Campus users could see what cash payments are outstanding and better mitigate their risk. But I'll just type in an org code. That's not the one. For an example here. Okay. Well, I'm missing a 0. That's why. So here the lists are starting to fill up. And these can be exported to Excel for further manipulation, or you can filter them however you like with the columns that are provided here. And if we go back to this menu over here on the left, everything is, for the most part, these are just links to external pages to reference. There is a little feature here where campus users can add a new sub-budget. So they would just complete a form to request a sub-budget. And their My TransPas Use is where they would manage those requests. Now we're going to switch to the internal GCA view. So here we are. And if you notice, this has a gold banner up above as opposed to the purple banner. So it's easy for us to tell which view we're in. And let's type in that same budget. Now everything's the same so far, and it's almost the same on this page, but there's a new column over here on the right. And that column has invoicing information that's pulled out of JDE. If this was a letter of credit budget, there just wouldn't be any information there. The financial information line is still the same, but below it, there's a new section called Budget Follow-up. And in this section, GCA users can assign the budget or paper file to a user or team, right here. And then they have keywords where users can status the budget or call attention to an issue. So here's some examples of what someone might put on this budget as a note. Maybe it has a deficit. Maybe it's pending an extension. These are just helpful for other people looking at the budget to quickly see some current issues. Or if they wanted to search in the work notes, they could see older issues. And there's also this next review date. So someone could put in a next review date, and then they would know when they need to follow up next on the budget. And all of these entries here, they can be queried. So we'll go into that a little bit more later. Within this work note field, you can also enter custom work notes. And anytime someone's adding a custom work note or making a change to one of these fields up here, when you click save, it's timestamped with your user ID. So it just kind of provides an audit trail. The indirect cost rate changes column, this budget only has one rate, it looks like, but had there been previous indirect cost rates, those would be listed here with their effective dates. And then on the right, there's a section for budget subcontract reconciliation. And this is a manual process in GCA. And the process is when we have to go in and manually charge indirect costs on subcontracts. So when these fields are filled, you can tell when the last reconciliation took place and how much it was for, as these are done on a regular schedule. So the report list is similar, but in the GCA view, you're able to see deleted reports. In this case, it looks like this budget got an extension, so a final report was removed from the list, and probably an annual was entered in its place, as you can see above, and then there's a new final report. If you click on the report ID, it will bring you into what I call the reporting tab. And I say tab because if you look up here, you can navigate between these different tabs. So budget was the tab we were just in with that budget information. Now we're in reports. And you could move into GrantTracker notes or queries just up here with these links. So here's some more information on the report. How much was reported? There's work notes, keywords. These all serve as an audit trail, capturing the changes that are saved by the user. And this is where the report status can be changed. And the reporting team can use this to pull their workload into their dashboard. And then campus can also see, the report status, like I've mentioned before. So let's just go straight into notes. And you can get here, out on that budget summary page. I guess I'll show you real quick. And if you'd scrolled on down, here's the same way you can access the notes. It looks pretty similar to the campus view. But when you're within the note, it looks different. I can still change most of these fields. So if I have a note that I need to reassign to somebody, I can pick a team. If the topic that was chosen was inappropriate, I could pick one better suited for the request. I can also change the status of the request. Am I requesting department input? When the department responds, it automatically switches to department input updated. I have a lot of options here. And I can also remove people after the request has been going. So if there was a bad email listed, I could go in and remove that person. There's also a way where you can switch between an internal comment and an outward-facing note. So note is selected right now, and that's something that campus users would be able to see. So when we're replying to them, it's a note. If we don't want them to be notified, we can uncheck that, and it's still there on the record, but they won't get an email notification. If I just wanted to put in a comment to one of my colleagues, and I didn't want campus to see it, then I would choose the comment, and they would never see that. Within each note, there's also a field for next review. So if you wanted to follow up on a specific note as opposed to the budget as a whole, you could do that here. And then you could pull this GrantTracker note into a list. So I've mentioned these lists and reports and queries throughout this presentation, and now I'm going to show you where you can find those. So if you go up to the top, you can click on Selection Queries. And this is for GCA users only, but they can create custom filters, delete their custom filters, or just filter as needed. The budgets can be pulled in based on various criteria. You know, some of that budget information from the financial system, some of the information and keywords that we added in those work notes, the next review date, all of that can be used to sort budgets and come up with a list, which will be your workload or dashboard, whatever you want to call it. So in here, it's like you can go, let's see if there's one. Next review date. I think there's the keyword is still over here. Here's the keyword. So in this case, I filtered it for open invoice right in here. And then I did next review of before April 30th. And maybe this is for the closing team. Like they're going to close out some budgets and they're waiting for that final invoice to be paid. Then they might want to sort like this. I'd also mention the report statuses. So there's a fiscal report list, which is where you can sort those different reports you saw on the reporting tab. And like up here, reporting dashboard LOC, there's some that were already in here, but I pulled this one up and then I sorted by due date and everything that wasn't completed or not started or pending. Oh wait, no, those are the ones I picked. Never mind. Anything not completed, auto-generated, or without reports. That was what it was. So this could be their workload for the day if this is what they wanted to work on. And then lastly, there's the GrantTracker note list. And this is where all of the messages or notes can be viewed based on their topic, assignment, status, budget, instead of having to drill down into a specific budget. And I like to think of this as like an inbox for our incoming messages. And I've got filters set up to include and exclude different details. But as an example, this is my default workload as part of the grant analyst team. And every request that comes in through GrantTracker is automatically either assigned to the grant analysts or the complex grant analysts. And the complex grant analysts, it's assigned to them based on some of the information entered in the budget follow-up section. So I'll never see those requests as a grant analyst if I'm looking in what's assigned for me. And then within this, I manage this inbox and triage to other teams. So I do a lot of reassigning of these requests or corresponding with the department until the request is ready to be reassigned to somebody else in GCA. That concludes my GrantTracker demo. Thank you for your time.